The 2026 FIFA World Cup just ended. Spain is the winner, and there are multiple theories behind how Argentina lost the finals. But I'll leave those theories to someone else on YouTube to discuss. What I'm more interested in is, who is the real biggest winner of the 2026 World Cup? Who profited billions throughout the entire event behind the scenes? Well, I found a few answers, and the one common thing is that none of them ever touched the ball. While you were glued to your screen watching Messi or Mbappe make history, a massive $11 billion financial game was playing out in plain sight. A game where the rules were rigged and the real champions weren't on the field. Who actually walked away with the lion's share of that money? Did the host cities get rich, or did they get played? And what if I told you that some of them actually lost money, while one entity quietly pocketed billions completely tax-free? The truth behind the 2026 World Cup's financial frenzy is far more shocking than any last-minute goal. You won't believe who the real victors were. The gold mine. The 2026 FIFA World Cup, hosted across the United States, Canada, and Mexico, was touted as the most lucrative sporting event in history, and it delivered. FIFA projected total revenues to hit an astounding $10.9 billion, a staggering 56% increase from the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. This wasn't just a tournament, it was a gold rush. Where did all this money come from? The biggest chunk, an estimated $4.2 billion, flowed in from television broadcasting rights. Imagine the bidding wars for the right to show the world's most popular sport. Then there were the global sponsors, pouring in over $2.8 billion to have their brands associated with the international tournament. But perhaps the most eye-popping figure came from ticket sales and hospitality. This included food, drinks, and other accessories sold at stadiums. Matchday revenues, which were around $950 million in Qatar, skyrocketed to an incredible $3 billion for 2026, an astonishing 216% increase. Everyone is calling the 2026 World Cup FIFA's biggest event in terms of revenue. But what contributed to the insane growth? Well, a couple of things. First, FIFA expanded the tournament's format. See, in the 2022 Qatar World Cup, there were only 32 teams playing. For the 2026 World Cup, they increased it to 48 teams playing. That means almost a quarter of the world's FIFA-affiliated national teams got a chance to participate, which means the number of games also increased from 64 games to 104 games. More games meant more hours on the field. More hours meant more content to broadcast, more space for advertising, more ticket sales, more food and beverages sold. You get the idea. And because there were 16 more teams participating, that meant the population of 16 more nations had a stake in the 2026 World Cup. More people interested, more sales again. FIFA said it received over 500 million ticket requests from all 211 countries affiliated to FIFA. The utilization rate of stadiums was at 99%. In other words, tickets pretty much completely sold out. To add a cherry on top, alongside this insane demand for tickets, the 2026 World Cup was the most expensive ever. During the group stage of kickoffs, FIFA was selling tickets for as high as $575, more than double the price of group stage tickets during the 2022 Qatar World Cup, which sold for $220 maximum. For the finals, the average price of a ticket was $12,751 on the mobile ticketing platform SeatGeek. So money was pouring in from eager fans and media companies. But behind all that revenue, there were also massive costs. This is where the host cities come in. While FIFA was counting its billions, the host cities were facing a very different reality. They were the unsung heroes, the ones building the stages, providing the security, and managing the logistics for this global spectacle. But their reward was often a ginormous bill instead of profits. This is where the story takes a dark turn. FIFA, a non-profit organization, often demands significant concessions from host cities and countries, including tax exemptions. For the 2026 World Cup, this meant that several U.S. states waived sales tax on ticket sales. For example, Missouri, Georgia, and Florida alone waived at least $57.8 million in taxes on World Cup ticket sales. That's money that could have gone to schools, roads, or public services, instead vanishing into thin air. Host cities were essentially paying for the party, providing the infrastructure, security, and public services, but were often barred from collecting their fair share of the profits. So host cities' public finances were sacrificed. But what about the local economy and businesses? If the host cities weren't the big winners, surely the local businesses, the hotels, and airlines cashed in, right? This is where the second order profits come into play. The expectation was that host cities' local economy and businesses would see an influx in tourism, and that the influx would generate more economic activity that would more than make up for the waived taxes. The promise of millions of tourists flocking to North America certainly sparked a surge in travel bookings. Amadeus Travel Intelligence data showed airline bookings to the US, Canada, and Mexico for the World Cup period were up 15% year over year. Hotels anticipating a massive influx saw prices jump dramatically. After the World Cup draw, some cities experienced astronomical increases, with Vancouver hitting peak rates of $1,455 per night. Data show that visitors expect to pay a 31% premium on average to be in a host city on a game night versus a non-game night. While this all sounds like a huge boom in business, that is not what usually happens beneath the surface. The massive price hike often leads to what economists call the crowding out effect. While a few luxury travelers might pay those exorbitant rates, many regular tourists who would typically visit these cities are priced out and stay away. CEO of the Hotels Association of New York City suggested that the pricey World Cup kept fans away, leading to a 60% cut in forecasted hotel revenue in host cities. When it comes to local shops and restaurants, these were often blocked by FIFA-controlled zones and struggled to capture the spending of the few high-paying visitors. It was a mirage of prosperity, benefiting a select few, while many local businesses found themselves on the sidelines. So really, where did all the promised money go? Well, you might have guessed it already. There is one entity that stole the World Cup. The answer, perhaps unsurprisingly, is FIFA itself. This organization has perfected a business model that allows it to generate billions in revenue with minimal risk. They control the broadcasting rights, the sponsorships, the ticketing, and even the official merchandise. They are the ultimate middleman, orchestrating the entire spectacle and taking a significant cut at every turn. And let's not forget the hidden giant, gambling. The 2026 World Cup was on track to be the biggest gambling event of all time. On online prediction markets like Kalshi and Polymarket, total wagers across the platforms in June 2026 topped $50 billion, the bulk of it driven by bets on the 2026 World Cup. While FIFA doesn't directly collect this money, the sheer scale of the event, fueled by their marketing and global reach, creates an enormous ecosystem of associated profits, much of which indirectly benefits the organization and its partners. It's not just a sports event, it's a global wealth transfer machine, meticulously designed to funnel profits to the top. So what is the World Cup's real final score? Who truly won and lost in the financial game of the 2026 World Cup? The undeniable winner is FIFA, along with the major broadcasters and global sponsors who secured exclusive rights and massive exposure. They reaped billions, often with significant tax advantages and minimal direct investment in the host infrastructure. The losers were unfortunately the local taxpayers who footed the bill for infrastructure upgrades and security, only to see their cities waive millions in potential revenue. Many small local businesses struggled to compete with FIFA-sanctioned vendors, and the promised tourism boom sometimes turned into a bust due to inflated prices and restricted access. The sad truth is, this happens to most of the global sporting events like the Olympics. Millions spent on infrastructure, only to be abandoned after the event, and taxpayers often paying the bill. But to end this video off on an upbeat note, this isn't to say the World Cup is inherently bad. It brings joy, unity, and incredible sporting moments, but we as fans and citizens need to ask tougher questions. How can we ensure that future World Cups truly benefit the communities that host them, rather than just enriching a select few? It's time to demand transparency and accountability so that the next time the world gathers for the beautiful game, everyone gets a fair shot at the prize. What do you think? Drop a comment below, and if you enjoyed this video, hit that like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.